Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Super Feeler podcast. My name is Lori, and I am very excited to be joined today by a guest who I've met already in person, which is always exciting. Anyways, I'll tell you a little bit more about her in a second. I have a couple quick announcements before we get started, so just wanted to thank our two new Patreon members, Jennifer and Nicole. Thank you so much for joining Patreon. It is super helpful for me to be able to continue to produce content and the support groups by having small monthly donations. So I really appreciate it. Hope you enjoy all your bonus content. Speaking of support groups, if you are new around here, we have two different support groups. One is called the Super Feelers Club. It's been running for 5 years now, basically exactly 5 years when we're recording this. And it is a kind of like It's a semi-structured peer support group where people come in, we celebrate each other's wins, we chat about things that are going on for us, and we have a great time. Super supportive space for anyone who's living with intense emotions and or borderline personality disorder. So you can find all of the information for that in the show notes or on the website. Then we also have a newer peer support group called the Super Skills Lab, and this is a shorter session. It's only 1 hour, and I try and do them more in the afternoon for all you European folks who have a hard time when the sessions are North American time and they're at 3 o'clock in the morning. And so these are 1 hour deep dives into a specific skill, usually a dialectical behavior therapy skill, but sometimes it's other skills that super feelers have found helpful in the past. And so we just work through that together. So anyways, either way, those are both available for you if you are interested, and we'd love to see you there. Okay, with that, I want to move on to my guest today. I have her beautiful book here that I got from her in Boston. We met, Valéry and I, at the Boston conference that I've talked about a couple times on this show with the International Society of the Study of Personality Disorders. She's a fellow Canadian, and that makes me very excited to meet a fellow Canadian in the States. So Valéry, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to this personality disorder world?
Well, the first thing I'm going to say is when people ask me what I do for a living, my answer is usually, I do my best.
Truly.
And that pretty much sums it up. It's difficult to be a mental health professional who also lives with mental illness, but there's also tremendous impact in that. So the interest in personality disorders, as I'm sure you can assume, comes from having one myself. And I've worked with a lot of clients who have BPD as well. And it's just something that I found led me to really using my lived experience in a meaningful way and creating positive purpose out of all of the suffering, all of the shit that I've been through, all of the really tough stuff. And in 2013, I started volunteering for a crisis helpline in hopes of helping provide a service that I wish I knew existed when I needed it. And that's what started me in this field, really. From there, it was all upwards and onwards, master's of social work, starting my business, starting my private practice. So a lot of different avenues that allow me to use that lived experience to really support others and understanding that there's no shame in it. And having somebody who gets it on a different level, even if I'm not directly disclosing my experience to the client, there's still a certain connection there.
And they know.
Realize exactly. That's what I
right. The way that you interact with people, I'm sure they're like, I don't know what's going on for her, but she knows something.
Yeah,
they're speaking the same language.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally. That's amazing. Maybe let's start with kind of just like your growing up. I mean, how did you said in 2013 you started working at a crisis center because you wanted people to know about services that you didn't know were available. So clearly you had a crisis at least once before 2013. So what was growing up for you? What did that look like?
I was made for this podcast. I felt everything so super intensely. I was bullied a lot. I was younger than all the other kids because I skipped a couple grades, and I was really picked on for that. I was the kid who always had her nose in a book. I didn't know the cool music and the cool clothes. My mom dressed me. I listened to my parents' music. Like I was struggling to form that identity that a lot of tweens already have. And so that was difficult for me to really connect with my peers. So I was coming home from school crying a lot and just feeling things really deeply, really intensely, and not understanding why nobody else was meeting me on that level.
Right.
And really, it all kind of came to a crux in university, which, first of all, I am a huge advocate now for people understanding that there are student accessibility services. I did not know that was a thing when I did my undergrad, and I certainly could have used support, accommodations, etc. Um, there's a course that I failed that I could have gotten off of my transcript had I had support from a doctor to show there was a crisis in that moment, but I didn't know that was even an option.
Right. And then it screws up your transcript for life.
Exactly, which is actually
Yeah.
how it took me 3 tries to get into my master's of social work.
Yeah.
But
Glad you kept going.
yeah, exactly. Me too. And the reason that I got in the end is not because of the academics, but because of all the volunteering and the professional work that I had done up to that point to really immerse myself in the mental health field and show that that's what I was really passionate about. And of course, I
Mm-hmm.
spoke about my lived experience in my application letter to the master's. And I think that spoke to the admission committee because we do need more clinicians and professionals who get it from a lived experience point of view. And I really noticed that in a lot of the roles that I held, like from working at CAMH to working at homeless shelters to working at transitional housing programs for young women who were trafficked, like so many different
Mm-hmm.
areas that I worked in. And there was always a nugget of my lived experience that allowed me to go a little above and beyond for the clients.
Totally. Absolutely. There's nothing like it. So you were bullied growing up and stuff. And when did you really start seeing like this emotion dysregulation? And I mean, just because I've read your poetry, self-harm, that kind of thing coming up, I'm just assuming that this is about your life. When did you start seeing those things really come to the forefront?
I just assumed, I think, when I was younger at first that this is just how people experience life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. How do you know
Every
if it's not?
onset of emotion, everything is so intense. How do you handle it? Everything is
Hmm.
either the best thing ever or this is the end of my life. And I assume that people just weren't expressing that that's their inner experience. But when I realized that other people didn't have that like magnitude of emotion inside of them, it felt really, really lonely. And the first time that I mentioned wanting to kill myself, I think I was 10. And my mom asked me if I wanted to go speak with someone. I'm 10. I don't want to go talk to a stranger. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
know what that entails, what it would do, what it would look like. So I say no, of course. And then the interesting piece is that when I got to high school, I made a really close-knit, awesome group of friends who are still in my life today. And that was a huge buffer for all of my symptoms. So honestly, like symptomology wise, I don't know that in high school I would have fully met the criteria for BPD because I had such a good buffer in that social group and that support. And when I got to university, the stress and there was a lot of tumultuous stuff going on in my family as well. So all of that stress just brought everything to the forefront. And I realized I'm not okay. Something is
Hmm.
wrong here. Everybody else is not struggling this like quite this much, and something's up. So I remember going to a counselor at school. Finally, I decided let's try something. Like, what the hell? I got nothing to lose. Let's try it. So I went to see a counselor at school, and I found myself lying to her about my great life. Family's great. We do all sorts of activities together. I have great friends. Maybe not fully lying, but only
Right, like
really
cherry picking.
only highlighting the positive stuff.
Do you know
And
why you were doing that?
I didn't really understand what she'd be capable of for me. And I was afraid of judgment because I already had like set my identity as the girl who's got it all together, even though on the inside I'm falling apart. So I
And did
felt
your family contribute to that? Like, was your family wanting everything to be like to like look like everything was together?
absolutely. And,
Yeah,
and and
mine
that
too.
was expected of me as well. Like
Yeah.
perfect grades, perfect attendance, perfect everything. That was the expectation for me. And when I found myself painting this beautiful picture for her of my life, she just sat there and she looked at me and she goes, "Wow, looks like your life's pretty normal." And I was like, "All right,
Okay.
guess I'm gonna go then." Like,
Yeah.
and I'd spent so many years thinking that if I tried harder, I could be better, I could be normal, whatever the hell that means. And having her tell me that, from the outside, you seem pretty normal. I'm like, cool, guess it's all in my head then.
Yeah. That's super invalidating.
Yeah, it was a weird experience to not I knew that I wasn't being fully open and like giving it
Yeah.
the best shot, but I felt like she wasn't giving me anything that warranted my trust. So it's
Yeah,
like
totally.
on both sides it wasn't matching up.
Well, and even to not ask any follow-up questions. Like as
Right.
a counselor, like you would think you would be asking like, so what else
Why
is
did you
going
come
on?
here?
Yeah, why did you come here? Literally.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. What are you wanting to get from this process?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a good clinician, that's for sure.
No, definitely not.
And so at what point did you get a diagnosis of BPD?
It was around 20 years old. I was self-harming a lot. I was starting to withdraw, be really isolated. I was really struggling. And my brother made an appointment with a doctor at the McGill Hospital who just happened to be like the specialist at McGill for BPD. So,
Amazing.
yeah, like the universe was throwing me a bone. And I went to see her and we got a diagnosis. And over time and over trial of different medications as well, and just observing like longitudinally the way my symptoms were presenting, we realized I had bipolar 2 as well. Uh,
Yeah, I noticed that in
so
your book, yeah.
little fun doozy of a combo.
Can you talk about that combo? Because that combo is like almost, I almost want to say like controversial sometimes for people where it's like, is it both or is it a misdiagnosis or is it
Exactly.
one or the other? And so what does that look like for you? It sounds like you identify with both.
I really do because I have the situational triggered intense highs and lows of BPD where it's usually an interpersonal issue or an like self-talk issue or core belief issue that will trigger really strong emotions, and then as with BPD it takes me a long time to come back down to baseline, but I also experience these much longer cycles of depression mainly, and then shorter cycles of hypomania, very rarely mania, but usually hypomania. And my
Hmm.
medication has now, it really tempers the hypomania, but the depression is somehow harder to dig into. And I
Yeah.
still experience that despite the meds. But because I saw somebody post on LinkedIn recently, a clinician who was asking about that dichotomy of BPD and bipolar 2, and is it a misdiagnosis? Do both really, can they occur in the same person? How do you tell the difference? Like he wanted to hear from other clinicians. And I piped in, not as a clinician, but as a lived experience person. And I said, for me, when I'm looking at myself from the outside in going, Val, you're acting batshit crazy right now. I know that's the BPD. And I reclaim that word for myself, you know? So that's when I know it's the BPD. And when I'm feeling like everything sucks because my brain's being an asshole to me, that's the bipolar.
Right, right. And then I don't want to make an assumption here, but my thought on the matter also is that with bipolar 2, there wouldn't be as much attachment stuff. And there wouldn't be as much, yeah, like you said, interpersonal, but also self-identity stuff beyond the when you're in hypomania or mania, like obviously you're feeling like kind of a different,
Yeah, for sure.
like not a different person necessarily, but like a very different
Yeah.
way of presenting yourself, but less so like who am I, why am I here, I'm gonna blend into other people. Is that
Yeah,
a
that
fair
I get.
comment?
It is. It is. The actually that is one thing I'm debating if I want to continue on with school and get into a PhD program.
Hmm.
And what I'm interested in for that research is the criterion of identity disturbance in BPD.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I experience that much more on the BPD side and not so much on the bipolar side. But what I find really interesting is that all of the symptoms that are experienced by the world around me are very much managed and tempered, whether it be skills, therapy, medication. So outbursts and strong reactions and interpersonal ineffectiveness, like all these things are like super managed, but it's the inner symptoms, emptiness, identity disturbance. Those seem a lot harder to dig into as a therapist or even
Hmm.
as the individual with them. Like DBT skills will help me with my behavior and then the thoughts and feelings that are associated with them. But it's really hard to zone in on the void of like, why am I here? There's no point to anything. Who am I? And
Yeah.
that's the part that I'm still struggling with. I'm not sure if I were to do an assessment tomorrow, I'm not sure if I meet the criteria for BPD anymore because it's so
Hmm.
well managed. But it's those sort of intrapsychic symptoms that are really tough to lean into in terms of like alleviating the distress that comes with them. And that's something I might be interested in researching if I do go on to the PhD.
Yeah, well, that'd be very cool if you ever do. Let me know because you'd have to come back on and tell us all about your research.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
So because like let's say I don't know the actual stats obviously, but like let's say like 80% of people that listen to this podcast have BPD or are very interested in BPD, right? So and like there's what 100 episodes and most people have kind of got a good understanding of what BPD is at the very least. Obviously it changes for everybody.
Right.
But when you talk, just because I want to make sure that others are really able to kind of differentiate the two, and we're speaking a little bit like clinical here around like hypomania, mania, depression. So do you want to explain a little bit about what each of those things looks like for you,
Sure.
and then what it feels like to switch in between?
Yeah, absolutely. That's an interesting one. So the depression for me is like an old oversized sweater that's just really comfortable and familiar, but it's still itchy. It sucks. But it's
Hmm.
so familiar, at least I know what to expect when I'm wearing it. So depression is so easy to kind of further sink myself into when I start feeling it because it's so familiar and it almost feels like part of who I am. And it's just, even though it's like debilitating lows, suicidal ideation, sometimes self-harm. I haven't in years, but the urge is still there.
Yeah,
Um,
me too.
yeah,
I
it's
think it will
really
be forever
hard.
for me, honestly,
Yeah,
for
I hear
both
you on
suicide and
that.
self-harm. I don't know if it'll ever go away fully.
Exactly. So it's, even now knowing that I'm much safer, I still have chronic suicidal thoughts and I know that I have to manage that. So the depression is just like this all-encompassing hole that I'm in, but I'm like putting more dirt on top of myself because it's comfy down there and at least I know what to expect. And then the hypomania is in a way it's relief from that because all of a sudden the sun comes out and I could jump off a cliff and fly and everything's amazing. But it also hurts because it hurts because I get this feeling of like this is the most incredible moment of anything ever and nothing can ever be this good again. And so that hurts because I know it's fleeting. But then
Yeah,
the logical part of my wise mind is like, and you're gonna crash. Like this isn't gonna last forever.
totally.
Now that I have the awareness. So that is scary as well. Um, hypomania, I can kind of like I said, it's been tempered by the meds, but I still feel like it's kind of part of who I am, that like feeling so deeply that like there's a poem that's not in the book. It's a new one. And I can share it with you later if you'd like to.
Yeah, yeah.
I
You can
think
read it here too if you want. Yeah.
I think it really pertains to what I'm talking about. Yeah, let me find it real quick because it's
Hmm.
those moments when I'm feeling so deeply that I'm like, nobody else gets to experience this like beauty of feeling like so much as a human and little moments that seem really innocuous and like mundane to other people.
I mean, that's literally like what this podcast is about, right?
Okay, so yeah, if you're open to it, I can read it right now because I think it
Yeah,
really
please.
relates to what we're talking about. It's called Forgetting, and it's gonna be in the second book if I ever finish that. All right. I've been forgetting my meds. I've been glancing at the bottles every morning without even reaching for them. I've been thinking of the chemical tethers meant to pull on my highs and wondering why. After all, for so long, the highs kept me alive. The highs made it all worth it. Made sure the blade didn't cut quite deep enough because surely there would be more coming. The meds lighten the depths too, but aren't those the price to pay? Have I earned the highs if I don't reach them by climbing my way back up? I was at an event recently. A young man sat on a desk with a guitar, singing songs in Punjabi. As I watched his head tilt back every time a loud and full note came out of his mouth, he explained that the songs were about love and longing. The others sang along. It was beautiful. No, but I mean, it was fucking beautiful. The imperfect vibrato of his voice, the occasional off note of the other singers. I didn't understand the words, but I guess I did because I started crying. It was too perfect. I was filled with fear that nothing would be this perfect ever again. I rode an ATV around Mykonos once, my hair tangled in the wind and my iPod blaring as whitewashed and blue-trimmed towns blurred by. I turned a corner and found myself at the top of a cliff, watching the horizon turn a soft orangey pink and the sunset into the deep turquoise of the Mediterranean. I stopped. I stood on my ATV, turning the music even louder. I could have jumped off the edge of that cliff. I wanted to breathe in the pinks and oranges and smoke out every bad thought I'd ever had with these soft, bright colors. In that moment, I was truly limitless, invulnerable. I laughed and reached up to the sky. I could do anything. I was everything I had ever wanted to be. There weren't pill bottles back then. Everything was untempered, full force, unbridled, and I loved it. Until I didn't. Until I wanted to die. But eventually I loved it again. Lately, my husband makes me take my meds every morning. He checks that I've swallowed them. All. It's like I'm an inpatient again. I say I've been forgetting my meds, but the truth is, it's hard to remember when you forget on purpose.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
Wow, I have goosebumps.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I thought it really connected with what you were asking me to describe, you know?
It does. It absolutely does. I experienced my first like true hypomania 2 years ago, and I don't have bipolar. It was a medication
Right.
fuck up.
That can happen, yeah.
And it was both horrifying and amazing.
Right?
I could do anything.
Yeah.
I was so productive. Holy shit.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, but it also led to like my first inpatient treatment, right? Like, I mean, obviously like didn't end well. But it was very much awesome for parts of it. Yeah. And I totally feel that. Yeah. So are substances part of your experience?
Not.
I know cigarettes are because half of the book is about cigarettes.
I'm still working on that one.
Yeah. It's hard, I'm sure.
Not too much. There definitely were substances in my earlier years used as a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
Kind of a crutch just to numb things and just like be more stable, which of course logically go get some drugs. Like what was I thinking?
Yeah.
But most people, it does start at that as that coping mechanism, but thankfully not something that I've had to be in treatment for or anything like that. But it's definitely something I have to be mindful of, that I do have an inkling of like, I'll grab a cigarette, I'll grab a beer, I'll get a vape, like just anything to like feel something other than what I'm feeling. So I do have to be mindful of that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And sorry, back to the medication thing, because I think your whole like it's hard to remember when you're forgetting on purpose is such a that's going to resonate with hundreds of people, Do you mind me asking what meds are helpful for you in your current routine?
It took about like 8 years to find the right combo.
And as it usually does.
Yeah. I very much believe that there's no shame in psych meds, that they are a very personal choice as well. And if you choose to go it alone, like I respect that as well. I try to avoid putting substances in my body as much as possible. So we like got to the lowest therapeutic dose that we could. That still helped me, but like we don't need more kind of thing. Yeah. So right now I've got Lamictal, fluoxetine, Abilify, and Wellbutrin. Which is a nice little cocktail that, just keeps me like tempers the highs very much, brings up the depression a little bit, smooths everything out a little bit more. And the way that I look at it is that it gives me a stable foundation to then use my skills for the rest.
100%. That's how I feel too. Like, I mean, if you want to and are able to function with no meds, like more power to you. I'm not willing at this point in my life, because I've been on psych meds since I was 12. Like I'm not, and every time I've tried to go off of them, it has not been good. So like to me, it's the same thing. Is I'm using these meds as a tool to be able to function well enough to use my skills and continue my like healthy routines.
Exactly.
Yeah. And also like, fuck man, if the science exists, why make your life hard for no reason?
Yes. Like if you can't make your own happy chemicals, store-bought is okay.
100%. Yeah, no, totally. Like To me, I'm like, there's no, like, and this is a very personal statement. Some people would very much disagree with this, but like, I don't need to suffer extra for the sake of suffering extra.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
know?
I feel that. I feel that as well. Absolutely. And like I I know that it's the responsible thing to do to keep myself healthy with the tools that are available to me. I started working for a retail store like ages ago where I won't say who, but they really were big on like goal setting and goal coaching. So I was asked to do a goal coaching session with one of the manager or whoever the heck it was. And this person told me that my 1 year health goal should be to go off my meds.
This is just some random like manager at a retail store?
Yeah, and I was like, cool. When did you get your MD? Like,
Yeah, no
going on
shit.
here? I was thinking like that's irresponsible of you to even suggest that, and it's inappropriate and offensive. Like you know,
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you, oh, you have diabetes, you need to kick your insulin habit because like no good.
Yeah, literally. It's literally just stigma at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
Stigma, judgment. Yeah, no, that's
Yeah, and
that's
I
ridiculous.
couldn't believe it. And like a couple years ago, I did try to go off my meds because my psychiatrist told me that if I was looking to get pregnant, it wouldn't be safe. So I went
Mm,
off, I tapered off of all of them, lost my mind, ended up back in the hospital. Good times.
yeah.
And now we,
Again, this is what happens with me. I'm like,
yeah,
I can try it all you want, but it's not gonna work.
exactly. And then finally, I spoke to my family doctor, and he was like, I've followed a lot of women through pregnancies with similar meds that you're on. You just need to be monitored carefully.
Totally.
So now that gave me a lot more hope that, when I, hopefully soon, but when I do get there, I can have the experience of pregnancy and having my own child despite what I face mental health wise.
Totally. And I mean, I'm not a doctor. Obviously, this is not medical advice. I don't even want kids, so I have no stakes in this game. But like, I can't imagine going off my psych meds and dealing with the shit that comes with pregnancy
Yeah.
and being a capable human being to even like keep a child alive in my womb.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? Like, let alone after the fact.
Yeah.
Even just like physically, because like the self-harm suicide that would come with that is
Oh my gosh, yeah. And that's, my
unreal.
doctor was like, honestly, the slight sort of like negative
Like the risk.
impacts or risks of the medication is way lower than the risk of you being super stressed and emotional as you're pregnant.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
Totally.
So it's like, there's doctors, not that they'll say this on the record, but there's doctors that'll say like, have half a glass of wine rather than be stressed out of your mind. It will actually impact the baby less. So
Right.
not that I'm, condoning drinking while you're pregnant, but it just goes to show like the stress that you can put yourself under can be way worse than the risks of other things that are counterindicated for, yeah.
Well, and that's the case with literally all medicine, right? There's always a risk.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you do, there's a risk. It's about weighing the risk versus the reward and making that decision for yourself, right?
For sure.
Yeah, that's interesting because you're my age, right? You're like 32?
38.
38. Okay. I was like, why do I feel like we're the same age? Okay, 38. Okay. Yeah, so you're
told that I look younger, which I'm okay
You-
with. I'm totally
you do look younger. You totally do. I thought we were the same age. Yeah, so babies is something that you're hoping for.
Yeah, definitely. And it's something I've wanted for a really long time. I just, wasn't in the mental state to think about that, and also wasn't like settled with the right partner and everything. But I really, really am excited about the thought of like a tiny little human that I get to teach that they can be whoever and whatever the fuck they want as long as they harm no one else. Do you and be amazing and take over the world and help people. And like I'm just so excited about that. And
That's awesome.
it's something that really means a lot to me. My husband and I want to adopt as well. We want to make one and adopt one, if you want to put it that way. And
Yeah.
that's really exciting too. So we're hoping. I mean, I'm not getting any younger. I don't want to be depresso about it, but
Yeah.
it is it's in the plans for hopefully soonish.
Nice. Awesome. That's so cool. Yeah, I'm always, so I like adamantly don't want children. I 0% want children.
Yeah.
But I'm like, for people who really do, I'm always like, go for it. That's awesome. Like, I hope it works well, like all that jazz. So,
And I think what's cool too is with adoption, just statistically speaking, a lot of children that are up for public adoption through the province have mental health or substance issues in their past within like their family or themselves. And I feel like I have a really unique perspective to support a kid that is going through a lot. And even, I mean, just the trauma of adoption, it's
Truly.
I don't want to get in this like savioristic sort of mode about adoption. It's a trauma for a child. And so even just supporting them through that, but then if they have further mental health concerns, knowing that they have someone in their corner that gets it. So that's what at first I was thinking, great, the adoption agency is going to look into my past and my medical records and be like, this girl's insane. No.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that I can frame it to them and explain that I think it actually gives me more aptitude to support a kid.
Totally. Yeah, I feel that way about fostering. I've thought about that in the past, is like, because we don't want kids, like if maybe one day that's something that we would want to do. And I think as much as it would be hard, because I get so emotionally dysregulated around children, it would also make us very, very great fosters, because we would understand emotion dysregulation and how to manage it,
Absolutely.
So just, this is so random, and I promise that I did not prep Valéry to say this, but if you're listening to this podcast now, in late February, an episode came out about adoption trauma. No joke.
No way.
Literally. Yeah, about the attachment trauma that comes from adoption and realizing that you're adopted. So that's an episode with Elaine. So anyways, just so you know, it'll come out the last week of February, or it has come out the last week of February. So just I'll try and remember to put it in the show notes as well. But it's true, because
that one,
yeah, totally. It was a great episode. So anyways, just so funny that you brought that up, because it's literally an episode that we just did.
Love that.
So can we talk suicide a bit? Because you wrote, and do you mind if I read something from here? I'm not a poet. So this is, it's page 16 of Valéry's book that I'll obviously link as well. And I'm only going to read a snippet of this. It's page 17. It's a poem called Scars. You might think I would wonder what draws me to find an end. It is really the opposite. Every day I ask myself why I want to live. And every day I have to find a reason. Some days I find several, and others just one. Some days I find none at all. And on those days I have to hope I will find one tomorrow. I was so moved by that.
Thank you.
Because I feel like you mentioned earlier, we only know our own experience. And so like when you were a kid, you assumed everybody was having the same experience. And I think a lot of people listening to this podcast will have that same experience that I just read. But I think most people don't think about dying by suicide every day.
No.
And have to find a reason to live. So tell me more about that.
I think it very much is, like so many things in mental health and addictions, is day by day. And often the way that I bargain with myself is, okay, we're not going to kill ourselves today. You're allowed tomorrow. Just wait till tomorrow. And then I get to tomorrow and I'm like, okay, not today, tomorrow. And it literally is just a game of hanging on one day at a time until I find enough reasons or enough support or enough fortitude or use skills in a way that builds some hope that now I can look at like a couple weeks maybe. And in the good times, I can look several years in the future. But on those days when it's really dark and I really don't know if I can hang on, I just have to promise to myself that I will kill myself tomorrow. And then when you get to tomorrow's now today. So tomorrow's the next day. And now you trick yourself.
and ride the wave. I mean, that's like so many GBT skills in one, right? Ride the wave.
Yeah.
The stop skill, urge surfing. Yeah. Like, I mean, so many things, right? And
for sure.
I use that technique a lot when I'm supporting others who are suicidal.
Yeah.
Right? To say, hey, can you get to tomorrow? How about you call me at 2 p.m. tomorrow? If you can promise me to get to 2 p.m. tomorrow, then we can discuss this again and we can see what, if you want to kill yourself at 2 p.m. tomorrow, then that's another conversation. But in this current moment, let's get to 2 p.m. tomorrow, or, hey, why don't you go out for brunch tomorrow? And then you can chat with me after that.
Yeah.
Right. And by the time you get to that next thing, again, there's usually something else that you can get to.
Exactly.
It's like micro goals.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I
And
completely agree with you.
so do you still struggle with that to this day?
I do. I shared with a friend a couple months ago. I was telling her that maybe like twice a week I start making a plan.
To the
She,
point of a plan even.
yep. And she was like, that's got to be exhausting. And I was like, thank you. It
Yeah.
is. It is absolutely exhausting. There's a reason that I don't hold my meds. My husband does, and he dispenses them to me like a week at a time, just to make sure that I don't have the option because my three attempts were overdoses on over the counter or prescription meds. And just because you do it once, you'd like, I'm not encouraging anyone, but you do it once and it's an easy plan to reach for. So just to be responsible to keep myself safe, I remove the option as much as possible.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we have a lockbox at my house that my husband's had to use on occasion where it's just the meds go in there and he gives me them every morning or whatever. And,
Exactly.
you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah,
Remove the means, right?
exactly. Absolutely.
And did I read properly that you were in a coma for like a week after one of your attempts?
Yeah, that was the second one. It was
Jesus.
yeah, it was a really bad overdose and I had a seizure and I was on tile floor. I had a concussion and then
Oh my God.
I was out for almost a week. And I remember, yeah, actually I can send it to you after if you're interested, but I have a piece that I wrote about like when I woke up from it.
Mm,
And part of that piece is about waking up to this. So they took the tube out of my throat and I felt this weird wet minty thing on my lips and they were using like a Listerine on a little swab to kind of clean up
okay.
the nurse. And then I could taste the mint and so that kind of woke me up and I slowly opened my eyes and I looked around the room and I could see this green blob and my eyes focused and it was my stepdad in a green shirt. And the
Mm,
first thing that came to my mind was I'm not even his kid, and he's here,
wow.
and he wants me to stick around, and he's supporting me and, like, happy that I'm alive, and if what kept me alive in that moment and kept me, like, finding gratitude that I didn't die was just guilt, that was okay for now.
Yeah.
We can get to the hope piece later. If it's just guilt of, like, "Shit, all these people are supporting me, and, like, this is what I'm
I'm
doing."
so loved.
Yeah, exactly. And it just like baffled me that this wonderful man that is not even related to me has taken on the role willingly of being related to me, you know?
Hmm. Yeah. Wow. That's powerful. Do you want to talk a little bit about your advocacy space? Because you have a business where you support advocates like yourself to kind of get involved in various projects and things. Tell me
Yeah,
about that.
absolutely. So when I started volunteering for the crisis helpline, I started quickly going into training and mentoring new volunteers, and I would share a lot of my lived experience with them because I realized that it made them more adept at offering our callers support. They understood better, they saw the human side of it, it made it more real for them. And then in 2018, I have the date tattooed on my arm.
Mm,
I was asked to keynote a fundraiser for that distress center, and I shared my lived experience. And when I got off the stage, I thought, damn, how do I get paid to do this? Like, how do I do this for
yeah.
a living? This is great. Because everybody was coming up to me with questions and wanting to understand better and having their eyes open to the fact that I look normal in quotation marks. I look put together and competent and like a proper adult, which I'm really not.
Yeah, me neither.
But like people don't look at me and think mental illness.
Yeah,
So the
totally.
fact that I was kind of subverting those expectations and getting people interested in asking questions really was exciting to me. And so I started my business and I started advertising my services as a public speaker on mental health and then eventually veered into also offering training and workshops. And I did it on my own for several years. And then a year this November this November was a year, sorry, from when I relaunched the company under the name Validate Mental Health Consultants and brought on my team members as well, who all have lived experience. And that's what we do. We do a lot of workshops and training in terms of community services organizations. So, like, for example, frontline staff from a shelter would need suicide prevention training, and they're getting that from me who's experienced it firsthand. Or
Yeah.
a corporation wants a lunch and learn about neurodiversity in the workplace, and one of us who has that experience is going to go in and give that workshop. So it's really important with my platform that everyone I bring on has that lived experience and that understanding that that's at the core of everything that we do. I speak in a lot of schools too. Middle schoolers are some of my favorites to talk to. Spoken at schools across Canada, and I love it. And they are so eager to learn and open and want to discuss their own mental health and just really break down that stigma, and I love it. So yeah, we do a lot business-wise, but we also are involved in volunteering and supporting events like the Suicide Awareness Walk out in Durham region that happens every year. There is an event called Homeless Connect Toronto that happens every year as well, where we volunteer, and it is a one-stop shop for our unhoused community members where they can get haircuts, legal advice, massage, pedicures, clothes,
amazing.
like all kinds of service providers come together in this huge arena. It's like 3 floors of services.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really cool. And so I usually manage the haircut station. Not that I know how to cut hair, I just manage it.
Yeah. You're like getting people signed up and making sure they got the right person.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
I'm not holding scissors, but yeah.
No.
So,
You're like, I could cut your hair, but it's going to look worse than when we started.
I don't think you'd want that. So yeah, we do a lot of volunteering as well. And it's really great to see that it makes an impact. Like in 2017, I was volunteer of the year for my distress center. And then in 2018, I was volunteer of the year for the distress centers across Ontario, which was really humbling, like just really grateful to be recognized in that way. And I'm hoping as much as possible that my company can continue also doing that advocacy and volunteer work, not just the business side. So it's like we're trying to balance the two.
Totally. It's a hard balance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. Thanks so much for all the work you do there. That's great. I think that's so important.
If I can get on my soapbox a little bit right now.
Please go for it.
A rant that I have posted to LinkedIn that I often or always share with my students. I teach at the college level in mental health and addictions. So I always share this with my students. And it came up in an interview for a magazine article that I did 2 days ago. This comes up all the time because I think it's really important. Mental health care and suicide prevention is not just crisis intervention. It's creating communities that we're able to thrive in. And if we don't have an understanding of the systemic structures that make our mental health poor and put us in crisis, we can't band-aid solution mental health issues and suicidal thoughts if we are not investing in affordable housing, food security, anti-racism, anti-oppression, all of these pieces that make our communities sick and shitty to live in. I mean, you can give somebody who's unhoused a CBT therapist every other day for the rest of their life. Is that going to solve that they don't have a safe place to live? You can give the perfect, appropriate medication to a man who experiences racism day in and day out. Is that going to fix that he's in an unsafe environment and experiencing these microaggressions? No. So we need to be able to get to the root of the issues. And that's why it drives me nuts when people are like, therapists shouldn't be political. Identity is political, and our health is impacted by how people are treated based on their identities. So if you're not ready to grapple with that, you can't support someone whose health and well-being is actually impacted by systemic inequities. So that's something I could talk about forever, but I just think it's worth mentioning.
100,000%. It's all political. Somebody was trying to recruit me for a job recently that was like for a level of government but it was like a health related job. Okay. And they said in the job posting and a number of times, this is not a political job. And I said, no, but it is.
Yeah.
I don't care. I'm not a politician.
Yeah.
But you cannot work in mental health, substance use, addiction, homelessness.
Yeah.
Anything. Food security.
Yeah.
Racism. Yeah. Anti-racism. You can't work in any of these things and call what you do non-political.
Non-political. Yeah, absolutely.
Every dollar that goes into these things has a tie to politics in some way.
Yeah.
And it is so important that we don't pretend that it's not political. And then we're both Canadian, thank fucking God. You look at our neighbors and go, how is this existence non-political? You can't say that anything about the existence of what's going down below us is non-political.
Exactly.
Every moment of every day.
And that's where
they're experiencing political turmoil.
Exactly. And that's where I make the distinction between, oh, let's agree to disagree in terms of politics. Yes, if we're talking about what should the budget be for the new highway, like we can disagree on that and still be friends. But if your disagreement is on basic human dignity, then that's not something we can agree to disagree on.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. If you're just like anti-trans for the sake of being anti-trans and you're not willing to like have any sort of conversation about what that means,
educate yourself or anything,
then I'm good. I'm done.
Exactly.
Like it's one thing to be be ignorant slightly and just not know.
Yeah.
And then there's one thing to put your head in the sand.
Purposefully just like, I don't want to know about this. Yeah.
Exactly. And then there's also, on the other side of that, there's something to be said for I consume political content all day, every day. I listen to every political podcast you can name. Like I'm like overly political in my thinking.
Yeah.
And I also listen to shows like Reality Gaze that goes over Seeking Sister Wife and 90 Day Fiancé because I need a moment to like have my brain turn off. You know what I mean? But the people that are like, I don't listen to or I don't know anything about politics because it's too stressful.
That's a privilege.
That's a privilege, huge privilege. It's fucking stupid. And you have to know what's happening in the world. You don't have to be I have a pathological obsession with knowing the political ins and outs of things. That is, to be honest, probably
like there should be a
unhealthy.
Being informed, yeah.
Yes, you can't just not be informed because it's easier.
Exactly.
But you can take breaks and you can be, conscious of your wellness. But if you just go like, oh, what do you mean there's stuff going on in the States right now? Or what do you mean there's stuff going on in Palestine right now? No, that's like you said, that is privilege. That is putting your head in the sand and pretending that it doesn't impact you or others.
Like,
exactly. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
No, that's a good soapbox. I'm fully down for that soapbox. Thank you for that.
Allowing me. I appreciate it.
Of course. Okay. So then the last question that I have for you is, what is your favorite part of having borderline personality disorder?
My favorite part is that despite the fact that it's caused me suffering, that suffering allows me to alleviate other people's suffering.
Beauty. Love that. I totally agree. Okay, well, Valéry, it's been so nice to get a chance to chat with you again, not in a conference environment where we did have so much to talk about, but it's always different.
Too. We had a lot of fun. Yeah.
We had a lot of fun. Yeah, no, it was good stuff. Well, you can find Valéry's book through, I will post it in the show notes below. I'll also post your Instagram and all that jazz and your website for your business.
Thank you.
It has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. We'll talk soon.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great.
Thank you so much for listening to the Superfeeler podcast. This episode was recorded on the traditional and unceded territory of the Matsqui and Sumas First Nations. If you'd like to learn more about the Superfeeler podcast, share your story, or participate in the Superfeelers Club, which is our peer support group, it's totally free, virtual, and open to anyone who experiences intense emotions or has borderline personality disorder, please check out the link in our show notes or go to laurieedmondson.com. If you would like to support the show, we would very much appreciate it. There's an option to do monthly small donations at whatever denomination you'd like, and you get bonus content, extra resources, and extra connection to me. That can be found on patreon.com/superfeeler, or again in the notes below. Thanks again, and have a great day.